Germany recently became the world's third largest economy, surpassing Japan last week. But it is not all gains. The country's economy minister presented a bleak growth forecast to Parliament on Thursday. So why is Europe's economic powerhouse flagging? Peter Oliver has that story.
Mercedes-Benz is probably one of the most recognizable German brands out there. They've just posted their 2023 figures. While sales were up, their CEO has urged against over-optimism. These are tough times economically in Germany. Official forecasts have been revised down from a hope of 1.3% growth to a barely perceptible 0.2%. Veering between stagnation and recession in the past few financial quarters, the German economy has struggled to weather heavy seas of inflation and geopolitical unease, something that Economy Minister Robert Habeck has termed a perfect storm. He says the country needs to change in a changing world.
The situation is challenging, extremely challenging. We must do more. We must address the reforms and booster reforms in order to strengthen and maintain Germany's competitiveness in a totally different global environment.
Germany's manufacturing industry has been hit especially hard by the loss of cheap Russian gas imports. Alternatives, particularly liquefied natural gas from the United States, are considerably more expensive. The German central bank, the Bundesbank, announced earlier this week that economic output was set to fall again in the first quarter of 2024, making 2 consecutive quarters of contraction and a recession. Mercedes bosses were full of praise for sales of their vehicles from 2023, but they have been keen to stress that the world faces what they've called exceptional uncertainty, and that could have an effect upon sales in 2024. The government in Berlin is also worried about the same uncertainty, and that's why they've revised down their expectations for the German economy this year as well. Peter Oliver, CGTN, Stuttgart, Germany.
Indeed, a lot going on, and to better understand what is going on with Germany's economy, we're joined by Remi Piet. He is a senior partner with Embellie Advisory. Remi, always great to have you on our program. I certainly appreciate it. Let's kind of get right to it. Germany's central bank says the country is likely already in recession. Okay, what does that mean to the folks in Germany, the day-to-day lives of people in Germany? What sectors are struggling? And kind of compare and contrast this. The same time the country surpasses Japan to become the third largest economy in the world, they get hammered with this economic news.
It's a very good question, John. I mean, and the situation is more complex than it seems and full of contradiction. On the one side, you have structural reasons for the fact that the German economy, its forecast for 2024 have been revised down. The main 3 sectors of the economy, whether engineering, automotive, or chemical, are in export-driven sectors that suffer from a sluggish global demands, and that actually provides some worries to the economy. And there's a lack of trust from the population towards immediate future. But at the same time, when you actually look much more in detail, you see that unemployment has never been so low in Germany, and there's the success of fighting against inflation. The latest numbers were 2.8%, has led to some reassuring news in terms of the capacity of the German economy to remain strong. And as you said, still within top 3 or top 4 economies when you're looking at Japan in the world. So the question here is more a crisis of trust and vision towards the capacity of the economic system to tackle the changes of the global economy, energy transition, capacity to bring skilled workers, because there's a shortage of skilled workers in Germany, and that's where the real concern lies. But there are some strong factors still in the German economy that will improve its resilience.
So explain why Germany's economy is so important, so crucial to the health of Europe's economy as a whole.
Well, it is the strongest, European economy. It does, relatively fare better than, for example, the UK, which is outside of the EU now, but is definitely in recession, as proven by the latest numbers. There is, obviously, France is the second largest domestic European economy, and is boasting actually, better results than Germany over the last few months and years.
Right.
But this engine built on France and Germany has always been the basis of the European Union, and there are, there's structural factors to security of supplies in different sectors, the capacity to jump on the capacity to secure critical minerals and lead towards energy transition economies that has been seen and lead to some weakening of the German economy specifically, but more generally at the European Union that fears some security of supplies on the energy front and critical minerals.
Also its geographical proximity in Europe has something to do with this. Let's talk about the ongoing impact of the Ukraine-Russia conflict on Germany's economy.
Well, it does have an impact, especially on the structure and fundamentals of the German economy that was, usually, built towards potentially receiving cheap gas from Russia, and the geopolitical positioning of the European Union towards Russia and the current conflict, following the invasion of Ukraine by Moscow, has led to the fact that the German economy is not as competitive internationally that it could have been with that additional source of supply. There's been a strengthening of incentives towards bringing new renewable energy, new capacities of domestic production. The German economy is suffering from the decision to move away from nuclear energy, as opposed to France, for example. And that is, some decision that fail the capacities to provide some cheap energy for a very strong and energy-intensive manufacturing sector in Germany. So there are some elements on the geopolitical side and on the question of the energy mix for the productive system in Germany that are linked to the current conflicts in the region, obviously.
So what cards does the German leadership have? What are the next steps for the German government to boost its economy?
So, I mean, there's decision from the Olaf Scholz government, unfortunately, is one of the most unpopular in German history for the last, few months. There's capacity and to encourage for additional, let's say, investment through a specific fund for infrastructure specifically. That's one element of being able to build towards the future. There's potential incentive for consumption, because as I was saying, the latest figures show that the capacity and purchasing powers of the average German has actually improved over the last quarter. So there's actually a lack of trust and lack of capacity for domestic consumption. So some on the very short term, it will be like consumption incentives for the domestic market. But in the longer run, you need to have like a clear strategy towards where is the German industry going and what would be the main focus of investment of the government. And there's been so much dissensions and disagreement within that coalition in power. Three parties lying, not having clearly a strong majority in power, that hasn't allowed to have some clear choice in terms of, as I was saying, structural decisions such as energy supplies, for example, or geopolitical decisions.
Interesting. Let's talk about a problem that has plagued so many nations, from Spain to Poland to Greece to India, and that's the farmers. What about the protests there? There are now some 10 EU nations joining forces to protest at border crossings. Tell us more about the EU agriculture policies at the center of this movement.
So this is a mix of different factors that impact the position of the farmers across the continent. There's been additional, intensification of environmental or regulations inside Europe, made for the public health and quality products, but are actually much more costly to produce as opposed to international, let's say, imports of produce from outside. There's been strong margins from the distribution and large retail stores that has actually increased prices and at the expense of both the producers and the consumers, and that has led to discontentment of the farmers that have to fight also some decision towards stepping down on the use of chemicals, for example. So all this has led, and being somewhat politically motivated from the extreme right, has led to some uprising in different parts of Europe, and has made some headlines indeed.
Yeah, indeed, a multi-pronged concern there. Remi Piet, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your insight.
Pleasure.